So, all right, here we go. This is me in my room, and this is one of the few paintings I kind of did for myself. It's not what I usually do, but it was fun as hell, and it was nice and big, and I built it and everything else, so I really enjoyed that. Okay, so going back into the past, deep into the past, this is one of my first subjects was hermit crabs. I kept hermit crabs when I was very little. And this is me in 4th grade doing a little painting or drawing of a green anole, which is a lizard we have actually here in New Orleans, and they change color. Okay, so this is so the kind of environment I grew up in was it's a place called Heartland, Michigan, predominantly corn fields and cows, and then a lot of the landscape out there in that part of the world is composed of kind of like old railroad towns that are basically crossroad towns, and then around the downtown you've got these, you know, affluent old mansions that are kind of moldering, and this was one of them. And I did this in, I think, 5th grade. I don't remember. I think it says on there somewhere, but yeah, that was my first published piece of artwork. And this is funny because this was a few years later. And this is a book I read. My uncle recommended to me, who's been to the gallery. He's just a wonderfully exuberant, kind person. And he was telling us about this book he loved, and I started reading it. And I thought it was so damn funny. And I did an illustration for the calendar. And this is like a beloved story in New Orleans because the person who wrote this was from New Orleans. This is a drawing, my first drawing of Lincoln, my first serious drawing of Lincoln, who's become a very familiar subject for me over the years. This was done for my grandfather. This is one of my first and only self-portraits. What a smartass. I did this, I don't know, maybe high school, middle school, but so awesome. And this is another calendar I did. I was actually commissioned and paid, I think, $200 to do a calendar for the community when I was in high school. It was probably junior year, it looks like, maybe senior year. But anyway, this was significant because this was the first time I had done drawings of people that I actually used, that I met with. This is really cute. So this is the show I did in high school at the community library. It's very sweet. This is the show itself. It's a shot of it. I gave them everything I had, and and as you see, it's all portraits. It's pretty much all I've ever done all my life. It's been the thing that's sort of drawn me, is portraits, always portraits. And this article is hilarious. It's like, you know, bring your checkbook, rising art star. So funny. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly talk about my influences. You can probably quickly see the correlation from these images to the sort of work I do. Chuck Close, I remember when I was a small child, my parents took me to the Detroit Institute of Art, and this painting is entitled, this Chuck Close painting on the left here is titled Big Self-Portrait. He did it in '68, I think, and it's like 9 feet tall. It's probably 5 feet wide, 6 feet wide. I don't know. It's a monster. And I remember being just captivated by this. And it was the first time as a child, you know, who didn't know anything. I thought, oh my goodness, you can do something, you can draw something or paint something and it looks like a photograph. And I was just obsessed with this notion that you could make something look like a photograph. And then Stephen Gamble, right here in the middle, I actually had to comb the images on the internet to try to find a piece from him that didn't scare you to death. He did Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. He was the illustrator for that. And the thing that was significant to me that, and I still love about him, is the way he seems to make images that come out of nothing. there's such a light touch and such an organic quality to his work. And my inclination has always been to really like make like hard lines and outlines and really be specific, and I've always been attracted to his work because it's not that way. And I think, how the hell does he do it? And this final image up here at the top is an image from Krapp's Last Tape, a production of Krapp's Last Tape, which is a play by Samuel Beckett. I only pulled it because it's an example of theatrical lighting. And truly, my education in art, formally, apart from a minor that I pursued, a minor in art that I pursued in college, was basically, my whole education in art came from my education in theater. Okay, so 2008 to 2012 was basically when I was really, really working out this style that I work with now. So I'm going to do a few images all kind of jumbled together, but these are all within that time frame. And then these are some more from around that time. This painting of Gillian Welch. That's one of my favorites still. And then this painting of George W. Bush, and then a painting of Lincoln. And the Lincoln particularly, and the painting of Gillian Welch, I think you can really kind of see like the influence of Stephen Gamble and the kind of macabre tones of those works. And then this is a commissioned painting of David Foster Wallace, who's a writer. Yeah, he's remarkable. And then there's Samuel Beckett that I was talking about as well. This is one of my favorite paintings from the time, and this was a commission of a portrait. This fellow named James. It's still one of my favorite paintings. It's cool. Painting of Townes Van Zandt with Leonard Cohen. He's probably my favorite musical persona. So this is now, this is my more contemporary work. Of course, this is Lincoln, and I come back to Lincoln. Lincoln is kind of my refresher if I'm ever in a funk, which happens from time to time. I'm like, I need to do another Lincoln, because Lincoln always kind of brings me back to center. It's a painting of Amelia Earhart. This is maybe one of my favorite paintings that exists right now. I absolutely love doing this painting, and there's a really wonderful interview with her that I found when I was researching her, doing this painting, and it's only maybe a minute long, but she's talking about this flight she's going to take, and it's just chillingly beautiful to hear her speak, and to hear her accent, and because I've only ever seen images of her, and I gotta say, it's one of my favorite things about the internet is that these wonderful relics that have been moldering in some archive somewhere for the last 100 years are suddenly made available, and we hear Amelia Earhart's voice. I mean, it was beautiful. This is Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela, like Lincoln, has just such a sculptural face, and a face that is immediately demands attention, like he's just so full of emotion and so many stories. He's a joy to paint, and I've painted him a few times. This is Einstein, of course, and I enjoy kind of when I have a chance to present, people in a sort of different light than they tend to be known. Obviously, everybody thinks about the big brain on Einstein, and oh, he's so profound, and I'm profound, and I want a painting of Einstein too, because I'm so serious and brilliant. But I love how you learn from these images that there's room for levity within such a deeply brilliant mind, and a mind whose conscience carried a heavy weight, for sure. Martin Luther King. So many beautiful images of him. This one was a nice candid image I found of him, I think, sitting on a park bench. And I just recently found another one of him that I hadn't seen before that I will be starting within the year for sure. Another painting of Obama. He's got a wonderful face. I love his ears. I love his ears. There's a wonderful a shot of him somewhere from behind, and it shows his head and his marvelous ears. And I know people probably make fun of him, but I think it's beautiful. Lincoln had big ears too. Lincoln had such a beautiful face. As a lover of portraits, he's like everything you could ask for as an artist in terms of a subject. This painting I include simply because the next image is a painting of it placed that a client sent us, and it's always delightful to see what becomes of the work once it finds a home in the world. Thank you for sending that. Obviously, I do a lot of celebrity images, and I'm sort of drawn to these celebrity iconography because I like that the work will speak to somebody who is not necessarily educated in art. You know, I mean, I like it that somebody who likes Sylvester Stallone movies is suddenly going to stop in their tracks and be like, hey, that's pretty cool. You know, like, I want to check that out. And what else we got here, you know? And I don't know. And it also kind of speaks to my, you know, the world I grew up in. You know, obviously growing up in the 80s, you know, I loved Sylvester Stallone, and it's fun to kind of rediscover that childhood magic. I find that's very important in my adult life, to not take things so seriously and to sort of tap into those sources of childlike joy. It's sort of life-saving. This is Elvis. Maybe Elvis is a guilty pleasure of mine. I do love Elvis. I think he's such fun. These are some paintings I did of Kobe Bryant in the aftermath of his death. One of the opportunities you have when you're somebody like Kobe Bryant or a celebrity is that you reach like millions of people. I mean, it's incomprehensible what kind of effect you can have on the world. And I think, you know, it's quite a beautiful thing to think that you as a single human being can bring so much joy to millions of people, and so much inspiration. I mean, that's what a gift that is. This is obviously Spock, Leonard Nimoy. I had not really watched much Star Trek, and then about a couple years ago, I sat down and I watched all of Star Trek, the original Star Trek, and it was just so much fun. It was like watching a play with bad props and bad sets, and yet it was still just so beautiful and entertaining, and it's of what I've seen, it's the best of the lot, you know, in terms of the revisitations and the new series and everything else. And Leonard Nimoy is unmatched. He's just a brilliant, and what a face. I mean, he's another Lincoln, basically. This is another one of my personal favorite paintings. This is an esoteric painting that I kind of did for myself because I didn't expect anybody to really know who the hell this is. But this is M. Emmett Walsh, who is an actor who's been in about 200 movies back to the 60s. And he's only in the movie for maybe 2 to 5 minutes. He's always the weirdest guy you've seen, and then he disappears. He's a brilliant actor. He's still alive. I think he's like 85 or maybe 90. So this is Lee Van Cleef from The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. This was a painting that Angela sold to the Four Seasons in Austin. I used to live in Austin, and the last time I was in Austin, which was about 1.5 years ago, I went to the Four Seasons, and I said, hey, I did the painting, and they were cleaning at the time, and I went in and took a picture of it on the wall. This is a painting of Bill Murray. Again, this painting is sold, but I wanted to show it because it's in the next image. It's the client who bought this painting actually sent us an image. This is a client sent us an image of some paintings he hung in his hallway on a fisheye lens, some of his cowboy heroes. So that the one in the middle of Clint Eastwood, he bought from the gallery, and then he commissioned these other two to accompany it. There's some musicians, Billie Holiday. There's so many amazing images of her. It's Ella Fitzgerald. She's such a darling. I love this. I don't often do paintings of people smiling, but it's just such a benevolent feeling from her that I couldn't I couldn't walk away from this image, and I just loved it. You know, this is Keith Richards, nice androgynous shot of him. I sort of love, I love working with models that have kind of an androgynous quality. I'm just sort of drawn to that. I don't know, I can't even say why it is, but I like that image for this reason. Mick Jagger. I like this image because it's got so many features to work with. The crazy mouth, it's just fun. It's a fun reference to work from. A lot of, you know, when I'm doing stuff, when I'm doing these paintings, I've done, you know, so many over the years, hundreds of portraits, and I mean, always something. You know, the human face is just magical. There's always something to delight you within it, and of course, you know, the easy thing is the eyes. I mean, if the eyes alone are so powerful. This is Shane MacGowan from the Pogues, one of my favorites. He's a wild and crazy rock and roller, and I love his music. And I think he's a very an artist who's in tremendous amount of pain, and he's a beautiful poet. And I love his voice. It's unlike anything. William Faulkner. My first love in art is literature. My mother was a English teacher, and she had thousands of books in her little den, as she still does, you know, and she was always encouraging me to read, and kind of got me onto my first writers. And I remember she had a collection of Faulkner, and living in the South now, Faulkner is my kind of my number one. He's a beautiful writer. This is Flannery O'Connor. She might be my number one. I don't know. They're both amazing. Flannery O'Connor is so terrifying to read, though. Some of the stuff some of the images and scenes she creates, it's hard. It's difficult to read. I mean, my God, she's writing in the middle of the 1950s or something. You know, it seems like such a long time ago, and yet she still can shock when you read her. Edgar Allan Poe. It's so many things to say about him, but he's what I think is interesting. My mother gave me this book of his, a collected softcover book of everything he wrote, the collected works of Poe, and about 20 years later I read it. You know, I mean, meaning, let's say 5 years ago. And it's fun because when you read him, everybody knows about like his, you know, the creepy stuff he wrote, and that's kind of what they know. But the truth is, like, the variety of subjects that he wrote about is astonishing. This body of work now with the figures, this is my favorite stuff, because with this stuff I can get right in there and I can create the composition, I can, you know, adjust the lighting, I can work with the model. And so what I'll do is I'll just take, like, you know, digital photography, man, I'll take like 1,000 pictures, and I'll just pull through them and find what I like, what jumps out. And what I like to do with models when they're modeling, I kind of like to grab the moment between poses. That painting, by the way, is called The Note. This is a painting called Taurus. Both of these paintings are of a woman named Claire Welsh, who's a dear friend and a very powerful poet as well. And she modeled for me a couple years ago as part of a show that I did. And this painting is called Taurus. That was her sign. This is a fellow, Nick, who I hired on a Craigslist posting. Actually, I just was looking for models from town, and he came by and we had a session. This is one of my favorites from my first show of Nicholas. This is a painting of Sarah Brown, who modeled for me as well. And I like this painting because it's one of the few where I've been able to get the entire form within the canvas. I always get frustrated where the canvas ends, and you just kind of have to cut the person off. That always bothers me. And so I really enjoyed being able to do the entire figure. Fun picture at Angela's gallery. This painting here was sold, but this painting still remains, called Dark. These are both paintings of a model named Eva Darling, who was my first model that I worked from, and I did a number of paintings of her. She was a remarkable model. Non-humans. So my mother always has these wonderful ideas for me all my life. I've been hearing about painting, you know, birds, cute little birds and kittens and sailboats and things, and I never do it. Painting in color, and I never do it. But one day she said, "What about an elephant? I just think elephants are so sweet." And I thought, "Hey, yeah, elephants are sweet. I'll do an elephant painting." Did an elephant painting for her, and then I did a series of other paintings of elephants. This one's quite large. It's a Hannibal after Hannibal with the march of the elephants over the Alps. This is an elephant in somebody's home, and actually, this is a nice little design that was sent to me by this woman, Savvy Landu. So everybody's always asking me about color. I do color, but it's kind of just personal work. Like these are some of my works in color, where I work with gouache, and I just kind of play with design and like a split complement palette. The nice thing about abstract is that you don't have to worry about it looking like Bill Murray. You can just sort of play with the elements and sort of let them guide you to the piece. So these are just a few of the ones that I've done in color. Okay, so then this last little bit is just me doing some paintings, you know, and this is probably about 5 years ago. The first thing I do is I put down a layer of like a paste kind of stuff. It's kind of like plaster, but it's workable. It's for art. It's an art medium. I use that same trowel, that same little trowel that's in the picture. My constant companion. I'll probably use it to my dying day to put on that stuff. This painting had serious problems. Usually I don't put this stuff on in the middle of a painting, but I think at this point I was basically like, okay, this is screwed. I got to start over. And I was essentially starting over because that's usually the first process. And then I paint the whole thing black, and then I do a grid, and I work from photos. Sorry about that. Work from photos. I got the grid on the photo, got the grid on the canvas. I transfer the image that away, and off I go. And then this is an image I started recently of Humphrey Bogart, and I just included it to sort of let you know what the painting looks like before it's done. This painting is clearly in progress, but you see all the elements that nothing is missing from this painting that is not in a completed painting, except for the layers. It's basically the same ideas, just at an earlier stage. So, you know, the lines, the splatters of paint, the washes. I just continue to do that back and forth. And until there's a depth of those elements. Here's a similar thing, but this painting is much further along, of course. On the left, the painting is in progress. On the right, it's completed. You can see in the beard, you know, some of the work in the nose, tip of the nose, it's kind of different. In the hair, it's kind of different. It's pretty close to being done, but that's it. Keith Richards, this is just to show an image next to the completed work. This is a commission, another commission. This is a person who wanted a painting of himself. There's the photo he sent. There's the painting. And that is the end of my little presentation. And thank you so much for joining me and supporting me.